This is an intro. Who needs an intro? I don't need an intro. This is just the
YouTube, what is up? I'm your OhmBoy Josh, back at you with another installment of Coil Wars, a build competition that pits builders in weekly build challenges, eliminating them one by one until only one remains and is crowned the Coil Wars Champion. 4 competitors remain at this point, and this week we asked our competitors to create Tsuka Coils. The Tsuka was created by Blue-Eyed Goon 83, the original concept for the Tsuka. The Tsuka Coil gets its name from the handle or hilt of a Japanese sword, which is sort of what this coil looks like when it's all wrapped up. It kind of looks like the sort of intricate wrapping you see in a lot of Japanese swords. When the Tsuka was originally envisioned by Blue-Eyed Goon, he used sort of an alien wrap with ribbon to create it. But these days, more and more people like to just twist the ribbon. That way it's easier to customize to the core of wire that they chose to put inside that Tsuka. And Tsukas can take many forms for their cores. You can put pretty much anything in the middle of the Tsuka. It's the wrap over it that gives it its name. Our first build this week comes from Skitsapart. It is actually the first Tsuka that he has ever made. For his core, he took a strand of 0.1mm flat wire and Claptoned over that with 0.1mm wire, and then he framed that in 2 strands of 0.3mm wire and fused over it Tsuka style with 0.1mm ribbon. He paralleled that up with a Clapton coil. The core is 0.2mm, the Clapton over it is 0.15mm over 0.1mm. All told, it ohms out at 0.16 ohms. Once again, a beautiful range of colors in this build from Skitsapart, starting out with some nice golds, then some oranges and reds, some blues and purples, and a beautiful glow shot as well. He's got it all mounted up in the Goon RDA. Not a bad first effort, bro. Crazy Vapes created a parallel Tsuka staple coil. The core is 12 strands of 0.4mm stainless steel ribbon wire, and the Tsuka wrap is 2 strands of 0.3 nichrome. Gorgeous build, man, with some beautiful colors here as well. That parallel Tsuka is no easy task. The shine on it is just ridiculously beautiful. That is some really nice ribbon. The colors that came out of this build are just ridiculous. These sort of rainbow colors that are coming over the Tsuka itself, and inside you can see all these different colors that are coming out of the staple. Oranges and blues and reds, and in the same shot you've got multiple different colors like oranges and blues in the same shot alongside of each other. It just came out really nice, man. Beautiful build. Teddy Dampt created a Tsuka framed vertebrae. It is a 5-loop 32-gauge vertebrae at the core, framed in 2 Clapton coils, 44-gauge over 28-gauge, and then he created a parallel Tsuka over that with 2 strands of 0.4 ribbon wire. He's got it all mounted up in the Faro RDA, and my favorite shot of this series has to be this one where you can see the vertebrae and you can see just a hint of the Clapton peeking out through this purple ribbon, and the cores have turned into this sort of blue color, and the Tsuka over it has turned this gold and purple. It's gorgeous, man. Looks beautiful mounted up in the Faro like that. Very nice. Divine83 VBC created a few Tsuka coils getting ready for this competition and ultimately settled upon this one, and I'm glad he did. It's a beautiful build. At its core, he has a staple coil consisting of 6 strands of 0.4 Kanthal ribbon wire that's been fused over in 40-gauge nichrome, and he's framed that in 2 Clapton coils made up of 27-gauge cores and 40-gauge nichrome for the Clapton wrap. Over that, he's taken a strand of 0.5 nichrome, fused it in 42-gauge nichrome, and then Tsuka wrapped that over his cores. Basically Claptoned over that 0.5 nichrome ribbon wire before spinning it up, twisting it for the Tsuka wrap. Everything is basically just Claptoned over. It's just this gorgeous bit of Clapton everywhere. The shout out for the week once again goes to Vape Daddy 1052 for his triple Tsuka coil over a frame staple that he's got mounted up in the Twisted Messes Squared RDA. But I honestly can't just shout out just him this week because all the Tsuka builds were just amazing. This one comes to us from PT Coil. Very beautiful build, also in the TM squared. TUCFTP created another one. That one is a Clapton frame Tsuka with corrugated ribbon wire cores. We've also got this beautiful series from Tasty Ohm Coils. Wow, it's his first Tsuka that he's ever created, and it is a Tsuka over an alien with twisted Claptons parallel to it. Gorgeous, man. Just gorgeous colors on this build, and the Twisted Messes squared RDA as well. I gotta say, one of my favorites has to be this one from Jitis Vapes. This Tsuka Staggerton has to be one of the craziest builds that I've ever seen. She also created a video with 441 views on the Coil Wars page, so you could see it in action. Amazing build. At this point, I think I'd like to go ahead and introduce you to the judges for this week's challenge in the Coil Wars competition. First, we have Chris Tib Miller, also known as Tibbs Coils on Instagram. Chris started smoking at the age of 8 years old, and he smoked for 23 years until he was finally able to quit because of vaping. He started vaping only because one of his friends had left their ego pen at his house and some juice along with it. And while it was there, he just started using it. He's been vaping for just over a year now and building for about the same amount of time. Up until 3 months ago, he was only building coils for himself, but he was at a friend's house and they were looking through some of the coils that he didn't use because he just kept throwing them into containers. His friend suggested that he start selling them, and now Chris offers custom coils for individuals, and he offers a shop collection, which he offers at wholesale pricing. He decided not to build what everybody else builds and what all the other shops carry because he likes to be a little bit more unique in his offerings. He says that he's a bit of a perfectionist, especially when it comes to selling products that have his name attached to them. He makes all the builds in one shot and says if he wraps one coil perfect and the other coil gets damaged during the wrapping process, he scraps both of them because they're not consistent. He was proud to be a member of CFA, Coils for Advocacy's only Canadian member to Coils for Advocacy, he adds, and he still continues to do his donations to American advocacy groups even though he's a Canadian, because cancer, he says, has no discrimination, and neither do these friggin' tobacco companies, because we're all part of the same community, the vape community. He donates a percentage of his monthly coil sales to a different advocacy group, whether it's Canadian or American, every month. He refuses to purchase products from any company that has not at least donated something towards advocacy. He's extremely grateful for vaping because it was the only way that he's ever been able to quit smoking. And all that is very impressive to hear about Chris, but what impresses me most about Chris Tib Miller is his level of commitment to the vape community and to building as a whole. As it turns out, Chris has had to learn certain ways to use his hands because his hands are fairly damaged. He has arthritis in both of his thumbs, broken and chipped knuckles over the years, and 2 years ago he broke his 5th metacarpal. He says that some days his hand hurts from gripping the drill so much that he has to lay the drill down so his hand can rest on top of it while he's working. And then just a few days ago he ended up putting a precision flathead under his thumbnail dead center and it came out the other side. Wow. But despite all that, Tibbs Coils keeps trucking on and building despite his difficulties. I think that the level of commitment from Chris, from Tibbs Coils, to continue building despite those challenges and those difficulties that he faces on a daily basis is just a testament to how important vaping and building is to certain people, and it impresses the heck out of me. Chris. And thank you, Chris, for taking the time to judge this level of the competition. It was an honor to have you. I'd also like to introduce you to Kevin, also known as Big Baller on Instagram. He uses the letter I and the number 3 for the B's in his name. He smoked for 20 years and has been smoke-free since 2014, when after a year of building, he became a part of Coil Goon's build team, where he discovered a whole world of awesome people and friends who have a passion for this craft and for build-offs that make us push limits and create works of art we can use and not just look at. Awesome, Kevin. Thanks for being a part of the panel this week, man. I appreciate you. And I'd also like to introduce you to Panzer Coil, who made a short video to introduce himself.
Hey everyone, Clapton Coil here. First I would like to thank the Coil Wars team, especially OhmBoy Josh, for the honor of judging this segment of the competition, the Tsuka Coils. I've been asked to tell a little bit more about myself. Yeah, I'm working in the game development industry for years now. I've been working on great games, having a lot of fun. I was born and raised in Quebec, Canada, so you guys can most probably tell already that I'm a French Canadian based on my sexy accent. And yeah, I'm crafting coils. It's a great hobby for me. Started vaping around 3 years ago, on and off at the beginning, but now since a year and a half, over a year and a half, I'm totally smoke-free, super happy about it. I'm more energized, my lungs are now free, feeling way better and super happy about it. And also I'm really enthusiastic about vaping in general. This enthusiasm led me to start building different coils and watch different YouTube videos, and yeah, so it's really a great hobby. I'm having lots of fun here in my garage, and for me it's a great passion. That's about it, honestly. Oh, by the way, I'm not selling any coils. Just want to answer lots and hundreds of people and hundreds of requests on Instagram asking if I'm selling coils. I'm not. I'm just building coils for friends, and for me it's a hobby, and when friends come by I give them coils, and even when I visit my friends I give coils. It's really not about making money with it. I'm spending a lot of money on it though. At that point I would like to thank all my sponsors and friends like Apothecary, Alex Bocage, who's a great person. He came up with this great line of juice. He's French Canadian and is an awesome person. I like him a lot. Another one that I would like to mention is Maxime Dubé with Wire Doctor. He's been with me since the beginning. Wire Doctor, again, amazing wire, great performance. Also would like to thank my build team, Snake Coils team, especially my teammates John and May. To those guys, thank you for everything you did for me. As well, I would also like, I don't want to forget anyone, but I would like to thank 666 Mods, Martin Laforêt, another French Canadian. He's really super passionate about vaping. He's engineering lots of different products, like Mr. T-Tank, his latest product is amazing. The Eastwood, another great RDA, as well as the Norris, the Hand 24, and you name it, and it's still probably crafting somewhere, something new somewhere. I would also like to thank Vincent from VPNG Vapor. This guy creates amazing juice as well. I would also like to thank all my friends on Instagram and other builders that I'm having lots of discussion with. Team Wire Doctor, all my friends there, as well as Team Bowtie. So have a good one, have a good competition, and thanks again.
The win this week goes to Teddy Damped for his Tsuka over Clapton framed vertebrae. And sadly, this week we will be saying farewell to Crazy Vapes. Dan, I appreciate you for being a part of the first season of Coil Wars, man. It was an honor to have you, an honor to build alongside you every week, and we all wish you nothing but the best, man. Thank you again for being a part of the first season of Coil Wars, buddy. Good luck to you, man. This week, getting to know our competitors a bit more, we asked them what their first build was. Beyond just straight wire builds, what was the first thing that they successfully created? Crazy Vape says that the first coil that he learned to make was a fused Clapton. But after his first fused Clapton, he got bored of it pretty fast, so he used about 3,000 feet of wire learning to Alien. And from that point on, it's been his favorite coil, the Alien coil. So he says, honestly, the first real coil that he made was a 3-core Alien, which was 26 gauge cores and 36 gauge Alien Clapton. Skitsapart says that when he started vaping, it was about a year ago, but as of April of this year, he began with coil building because he found it to be extremely interesting, that he can do anything himself. He started with Clapton coils, and after a week he immediately switched to making staple coils, and since then he's mainly done things with flat wire. He's never used finished wires like Clapton's, Aliens, meaning wires that someone else has completed for him, apart from the finished coils that he's used in his Cubus. He exclusively uses his own handmade products. Ndivine83 VBC says that he followed the order of watching Rip Trippers, and then watching Twisted Messes, and then watching Squid Dude's tutorials, and he eventually found my tutorials as well, looking for OhmBoy OC. His first builds were like Micro Dragon coils and Trico coils, and then more popular Zippers and Claptons. Honestly, he thinks he tried every one of them the first time he bought a spool of 28 gauge and 32. He says these days he spends a night or two on a single pair of coils. Teddy Dampt began by making Clapton coils. The reason why he started with Claptons is because he was in a WhatsApp group where someone wanted to sell him Claptons for €2.50 for 1 meter. He's a little bit stingy, and he tried to find a way to make them himself. On his YouTube channel, you'll find a video where he makes his first Clapton coil. It's the first video on his channel, in fact. And that was 4 years after he started vaping. For me, first build that I ever learned to make was basically just twisted wire. Twisted round wire cores, twisting different kinds of wire together, 24 gauge twisted with 26, or twisted with 28, or strands of 28 twisted together, or reverse twisted, or twisting twisted wires together, or reverse twisting them. That kind of stuff was the first thing that I kind of learned how to do. That was my first introduction to building and creating different kinds of wires to use in vaping. And soon after that, I wanted to learn to Clapton. I wanted to learn how to expand my horizons with Clapton coils and fused Clapton coils, and around this time is when the Alien coil was starting to come out and people were getting excited about more and more build techniques. So the first coil that I ever really struggled with, the first coil that ever took time for me to learn, was the Clapton. And with that in mind, this week's challenge is all about the Clapton coil. Next week is all about the Clapton coil. So our builders can make anything that they want to make as long as all it consists of are single core Claptons. No fused Claptons, no alien Claptons, no ribbon wire. All they can use are single core Claptons. One strand of round wire Claptoned over and another strand of round wire. That's all that they can use to create the next builds. They can use multiple Clapton coils to make them, but all they can use are Claptons. They can make Clapton coils and alien Clapton over them with Claptons. They can make Staggertons and just use Clapton coils to make those. They can do just about anything that they want to do as long as all they use are Claptons. Okay? Okay, so this week I threw together a Clapton coil build on the Aeronaut V2. Lately I've just kind of become enamored with DeeDupDex's page on Instagram. I just sort of rediscovered it, I guess. DeeDupDex was one of those builders that really got the ball rolling for building. This is back in 2014, basically. He was really big on Instagram and Facebook and posting builds over to ECF, and he was one of the most influential coil builders out there back in 2014, if you ask me. I've kind of rediscovered his page a little bit, and I was looking through it for a while, and one of my favorite builds by DeeDupDex is the Swan Coil. It's just elegant and beautiful and easy to make, and so I thought this week we'd throw a dual coil build into the Aeronaut of a pair of swans. So creating the Clapton coil, if you've ever seen a build video anywhere, you've probably seen at least a bit on how to make a Clapton coil. The Clapton coil was created by Derek Smalls, and it gets its name from Eric Clapton because it resembles a guitar string like G string on up. A Clapton wire is basically a strand of wire that has been sort of rewrapped over in a much smaller strand of wire. That's it at its core. So I created a Clapton coil using 22 gauge and 40 gauge. And once that was done, I set about creating my swans. When you look at a swan coil, at first glance, it's pretty reminiscent of a parallel wrapped coil. You know, two strands of wire that you've wrapped together. That's what it looks like, but it's actually only a single core wire, because the way that's created is folding the wire in half, and then we're wrapping it together from the fold. You can also wrap from the other end, I suppose, but the key is to make a good swan. If you ask me, you don't want more than 3 wraps. You can do 4, maybe, but I like to keep it no more than 3. That way it's basically a 6-wrap coil in the end. Now, most people make swans, they just wrap them around a screwdriver. That's how I've always done it in the past, but I wanted to give them sort of a mandrel kind of look to them, wrapping around sort of a cone-shaped sort of thing. So I decided to use my needle nose pliers that come in the Geek Vape toolkit. So I first used the toothless pliers to get the bend in the Clapton wire as tight as I possibly could and as gently as I possibly could. Now, I knew it wasn't going to come out perfectly clean because I was using a Clapton. I'm bending it in half and I'm going to be wrapping around toothless pliers, but I still wanted to get it as clean as I could, so I was trying to be gentle as I possibly could be with it. With the Aeronaut V2, the way the well is situated, there's a bit of a cutaway on either side of the well to accommodate your wicking better. I knew that I wanted the ends of the swan to sort of line up with the end of that well so that the wick would go into the well properly. And to do that, I had to actually reverse wrap the swans. So I secured the bend in that wire with the needle nose pliers, and then I wrapped backwards using my left hand to create my swan coils. Yeah. In the end, it ohms out at about 0.2 ohms, and I vape it at about 125 watts. I mean, really, I could put this coil back down at, say, 80 watts, and it vapes fine. I just like pushing a little bit further for that ramp up. 80 watts is a nice, flavorful, chill vape, but I just like pushing this one a little bit harder. I like pushing it at, 110, 120, 125, something like that. got a good bite too. It's a good vape. Of course it's going to be delicious, of course it's going to be flavorful. It's a Clapton coil, it's the Aeronaut V2, but I love the surface area that this created in here. That's what I was going for. I was going for a lot of surface area while spacing those wraps to create the Swan. I wanted something big and bulbous because there's a lot of build space in this RDA, and I wanted to use that build space as much as possible. It's definitely a more artistic coil. There's probably easier ways to make this particular build. Had to do this build again. I would definitely do it again. I would probably not do it as Clapton's though, to be honest with you. I'm not the cleanest when it comes to Clapton's. Clapton's and me, I prefer making fused Clapton's, honestly. Fused Claptons, I can get them to be a lot cleaner than my Clapton coils. I need to work on my Claptons. They're okay. There are a few gaps here and there in the Clapton wrap, and I've always known that the Aeronaut would be a great RDA to put a dual coil Swan build in there, because the way that it would look would just be like a single coil down the middle, which is really what the Aeronaut is optimized for, and the Aeronaut V2 even more so, optimized for exotic single coil builds, because there's a lot of build space in there. Beautiful, well-made clamping system, but it's definitely more for single coil builds than dual coil builds. However, you can get creative and find ways to put dual coil builds in here, and that was one way that I never covered before, but I always wanted to. The Swan Coil build is incredibly useful for fitting certain builds into certain places, and the Aeronaut is just one of them. To this day, ever since I've reviewed it, the Aeronaut has always been my favorite RDA of all time. And I love it because it's just optimized for single coil exotic builds, which for me, when I build exotic builds, that's usually what I'm going for. Single coil, and it's just got the perfect airflow because it's got top airflow, it's got bottom airflow, and it's just a wonderful RDA. And the V2 Aeronaut, I gotta tell you, with the adjustments that have been made to it, the spring-loaded clamps, the sort of extended well where you can put your wicks, the offset posts, and the ability to have your own drip tips. Hell yeah, it is even better than the original. All the small changes that have been made here, the adjustable top airflow, I love it. I love the Aeronaut V2 even more. As if that was possible, even more than the original Aeronaut. It is everything that the original Aeronaut was, and more. And with that in mind, I'm proud to announce that I have not one, not two, but 3 Aeronauts that will be given out to the remaining winners in the Coil Wars competition. So the top 3 builders are going to get Aeronauts. The next 2 challenges will decide which Aeronaut goes where. First place will receive this limited edition Rainbow Aeronaut. Second place will receive this limited edition Gold Aeronaut. Those 2 are not even available at the first release, so you know. And the third place winner will be receiving this Black Aeronaut. Daniel Song, a creator of the Aeronaut RDA, has been a big fan of Coil Wars since its inception and contacted me when he had this in the prototyping stage and wanted me to make sure that I would give these out to the winning builders. So huge thanks to Daniel over at Aeronaut Vapes, not just for making this amazing device that I love more than anything. I'm like the biggest Aeronaut fanboy you will ever meet, but for making this happen for our winners, and I'm super excited to get these out to the remaining builders. Awesome. Anyway guys, that is a wrap on Coil Wars this week. Until next time, I am your homeboy, OhmBoy Josh. Vape on, vapors.